The galaxy was full of wonders, mysteries, and dangers, but among all its traditions there was one that stood above the rest in terms of both spectacle and fear. It was called the Trial of Dominance. Once every solar cycle, alien leaders, warriors, nobles, and citizens from dozens of species gathered to witness a single event, the Battle of the Strongest. The trial was held in an enormous arena built on the desert moon of Dravkor. The arena was a masterpiece of alien engineering, carved into black stone and surrounded by towering spires that glowed with violet energy. Its walls stretched high into the sky, reinforced to withstand the fury of monsters that could crush starships with their claws. Millions of seats circled the pit below, rising layer upon layer like a sea of eyes ready to watch destruction. The trial of dominance was simple: unleash the galaxy's most dangerous predator and let it fight challengers. No rules, no weapons. Only survival. For most, it was just entertainment, but for others, it was a chance to study strength. On this cycle, the creature chosen was a nightmare even by alien standards: the Vorkal. The Vorkal was no ordinary beast. It was considered the apex predator of 3 star systems, a monster that entire armies had failed to capture without heavy losses. Its body stood nearly 10 feet tall, covered in ridged, armor-like plates that shimmered under the arena's lights. Its claws were long and curved, able to slice through metal as if it were cloth. Rows of jagged teeth filled its enormous jaws, and its eyes burned with a cruel, predatory glow. The moment the gates opened and the Vorkal stepped onto the arena floor, the crowd erupted in roars, whistles, and alien cries. "Look at it," shouted a scaled merchant, his 4 hands clapping together. "The monster of legends!" "It is unstoppable," muttered a cloaked noble with twitching antennae. "No challenger has hope today." Everyone waited eagerly for the fight. Many placed bets, others made predictions, but all of them expected the same outcome: slaughter. Then the announcer's voice echoed across the arena, booming with pride. "Citizens of the galaxy, today we present to you something unusual." The audience quieted, curious. The announcer rarely spoke with hesitation. The challenger is not a beast, not a warrior of the coalition, not even a genetically engineered fighter. No, today's challenger is a human. The silence that followed was sharp and heavy. Then laughter exploded through the crowd. A human in the arena? Against the Vorkal? It was absurd. Humans were a relatively new species in the galactic stage. They had spread quickly across nearby systems but were seen as average at best. Their technology was not the most advanced. Their bodies were not the strongest, and their history was not the longest. To the galaxy, humans were adaptable and curious, but certainly not exceptional. "What foolishness is this?" hissed a reptilian warlord. His tail lashed against the stone floor in irritation. "This will not be a fight. It will be a joke." "A human," chuckled a feathered scholar with golden eyes. "They cannot even withstand the gravity of Arak Prime. How will one survive against the Vorkal?" The bets immediately shifted, most of them mocking. Some aliens wagered how many seconds the human would last. Others wondered if the human would even manage a single step before being torn apart. The gates on the opposite side of the arena opened. Out stepped Captain Elias Kane. He wore no armor. No weapons hung at his side. His only clothing was a plain, training uniform, loose enough for movement but offering no real protection. His dark hair was cropped short, his jaw set with calm determination. His eyes scanned the arena, not in fear but with steady focus. The laughter grew louder. "This is madness," someone shouted. "Send in a real challenger," another jeered. But Elias didn't flinch. He walked across the hot sand of the arena, floor as though the crowd didn't exist, as though the Vorkal's towering form was just another obstacle. His steps were slow, steady, and deliberate. Up in the grand viewing box, alien leaders watched closely. Some sneered, some were amused, but a few tilted their heads with curiosity. There was something unusual in the human's movements. Confidence, not arrogance. The Vorkal let out a bone-shaking roar, its massive chest vibrating like a war drum. It stomped the ground with claws the size of blades, leaving deep cracks in the stone. The crowd cheered louder, expecting the end to come quickly. The announcer raised a hand. "Begin." The beast charged. The ground trembled as it thundered forward. Claws swinging, jaws opening wide enough to swallow the human whole. Dust rose with every step, and the monster's roar echoed like thunder. The crowd screamed in excitement. Many leaned forward, eager to see human flesh torn apart. But Elias Kane didn't run. He didn't scream. He didn't freeze. He moved. With calm precision, he shifted his weight, stepping aside just as the beast's claws slashed through the air where his head had been. The motion was so smooth, so practiced, that the crowd blinked in surprise. The Vorkal stumbled slightly, unbalanced, by missing its target. Elias didn't attack. He simply adjusted his stance, eyes locked on the predator, watching every twitch, every breath. "What is this?" hissed the reptilian warlord in the viewing box. "He should be dead already." "He is reading it," whispered the feathered scholar, her golden eyes narrowing, like prey that has studied its predator. The Vorkal roared again, furious. It charged a second time, faster, claws slashing in a deadly arc. Elias ducked low, rolled across the sand, and rose to his feet in one smooth motion. Not a scratch touched him. The crowd's laughter began to fade, replaced by murmurs. "Impossible," muttered a scaled merchant, his four hands tightening around each other. "No one moves like that." Another attempt, another dodge. Elias slipped just beyond the reach of teeth and claws, his movements sharp, efficient, almost instinctive. Still, he did not attack. He was waiting, watching, studying. The Vorkal grew angrier with each miss. Its roars filled the arena. Its strikes grew wilder, more reckless. It was a predator used to overwhelming prey in seconds, but this prey refused to break. From the stands, the aliens began to sense something that unsettled them. The human was not fighting like prey at all. He was fighting like a predator. His calmness, his patience, his unwavering eyes, it was the same way their greatest hunters stalked beasts. And yet he was unarmed, small compared to the towering monster before him. The Vorkal's tail whipped across the sand, sending a wave of dust into the air. Elias shielded his eyes, stepping back, his breathing steady. For a brief moment, his gaze lifted toward the audience. Thousands of alien eyes met his calm, unshaken stare. The laughter had ended. Now there was silence. The human had survived longer than anyone expected. Much longer. And with every passing second it became clearer. This was no ordinary fight. Something different was unfolding in the arena. The Vorkal roared again, preparing for another strike. Its massive claws gleamed under the harsh arena lights. The sand shook with its steps. But Elias Kane's lips curled slightly. Not in arrogance, but in readiness. The true fight was only beginning. The roar of the Vorkal echoed across the arena, rattling the bones of everyone who heard it. Dust lifted from the ground, swirling in the hot air. The beast's jaws opened wide, lined with rows of jagged teeth that gleamed like blades under the harsh lights. Its claws gouged deep scars into the stone as it stomped forward. The audience had expected the human to fall in seconds, but instead Elias Kane still stood. Calm, ready, watching. At first, the alien crowd had laughed. They had mocked. They had placed bets that the human would not last more than 3 heartbeats. But now, the laughter had begun to die. This was not what they had expected. Elias moved differently from anything they had seen before. He did not fight with wild strikes, nor did he rush forward recklessly. Instead, he shifted with smooth precision, every movement timed perfectly. The Vorkal's claws struck again and again, each swing strong enough to rip a starship's hull apart. But every strike missed. The human ducked, the human rolled, the human stepped just outside the beast's reach. It was not luck. It was skill. "Impossible," whispered a scaled merchant in the front row, his 4 hands clutching at his chest. "The human should have been torn apart." Up in the high viewing box, alien leaders leaned forward. The reptilian warlord known as Zor hissed in annoyance, his scaled fingers drumming against the stone table. "This is nothing but delay," Zor growled. "The beast will crush him soon enough." Beside him, a feathered scholar tilted her head, golden feathers rustling as she studied Kane's movements. "No," she murmured. "He is reading it, watching, waiting. The human is not prey. He is a hunter." The Vorkal roared again, anger shaking its massive chest. It was not used to this. Prey was supposed to panic. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to scream. But the human did none of these things. His expression remained steady, eyes sharp, muscles coiled. The beast lunged forward, claws outstretched. Elias sidestepped, his boots sliding across the sand. He pivoted sharply, his hand brushing the ground to keep balance. The claws missed him by inches, raking deep furrows into the stone floor. The audience gasped as Kane darted past the monster's flank, barely avoiding a lash of its spiked tail. For a moment, the human stood at the beast's side. He could have struck, but he didn't. Instead, he simply stared at the Vorkal, as if measuring it, testing it, learning its every movement. The alien crowd shifted uneasily. This is wrong," muttered a tall insectoid noble. His mandibles clicked nervously. He should be dead, but instead the human was surviving. Minute after minute passed, and the Vorkal grew more frustrated. Its attacks grew faster but also sloppier. Its roars carried not just rage, but confusion. Never before had prey lasted this long. Elias breathed, steadily, sweat glistening on his brow, but his focus unbroken. Each time the Vorkal attacked, he found the smallest gap, the narrowest escape. He was not faster than the beast, nor stronger, but his timing was perfect. He flowed like water around every strike, and the crowd began to feel it. Fear. Not fear of the Vorkal. They had seen that many times. No, this fear was different. It came from the human. From the fact that this small, unarmored creature was defying everything they thought they knew. Up in the viewing box, Warlord Zor slammed his tail against the ground. "Unacceptable. This is no warrior, this is a trick, some kind of illusion." But the feathered scholar shook her head. "No trick. Look at him, his body, his breathing. This is discipline. This is control. The human knows exactly what he is doing." The Vorkal attacked again, this time with a sudden burst of speed, claws swiping low. Elias jumped back, sand scattering beneath his boots. The beast lunged with its jaws, snapping down with enough force to shatter stone. At the last moment, Elias dropped to the ground, sliding under the beast's maw. The jaws snapped shut just above him, and sparks flew as teeth met stone. The crowd gasped as Elias rolled to his feet behind the beast, untouched. For a long moment, silence filled the arena. The laughter was gone. The mocking was gone. All that remained was stunned disbelief. The Vorkal turned, bellowing with rage. Its massive tail whipped around like a spiked club. Elias ducked under it, the air rushing past his head. His eyes narrowed. He had seen enough. He understood the beast now, its patterns, its strengths, its mistakes. The crowd leaned forward. Something had changed. The human's stance shifted. No longer only defense. Now he was preparing for more. But still, he waited. He wanted the beast to strike first. The Vorkal raised its claws high and brought them down with crushing force. Elias didn't step away this time. He stepped forward. The claws struck the ground, sending shards of stone flying. Before the beast could lift them again, Elias was inside its guard. His hand shot out, gripping the Vorkal's wrist. His other hand slammed against its forearm. The crowd gasped. No one dared to touch the beast directly. Its hide was too strong, its strength too great. But the human held on. The Vorkal snarled, jerking its arm upward. Elias slid with the motion, twisting, forcing the monster's weight against itself. The beast stumbled, slamming against the stone wall of the arena. Dust fell from the ceiling as cracks spread through the surface. The alien screamed in shock. "How?" shouted the insectoid noble. His mandibles clicked wildly. "The Vorkal cannot be moved." "It is not brute force," murmured the feathered scholar, her feathers trembling. "It is technique, precision. He uses the beast's own strength against it." The Vorkal ripped free, swinging wildly. Elias leapt back, breathing hard but steady. His eyes never left the predator. For the first time, the alien crowd realized something chilling. The human was not the one struggling. The beast was. And the beast knew it. Its roars grew desperate, its strikes more violent but also less controlled. It charged with fury, tearing through the sand, sending clouds of dust into the air. Elias ducked under its jaws, rolled across the ground, and came up on his feet again. His movements were not just survival, they were mastery. The Vorkal roared so loudly that the arena shook, but to the audience, its roar no longer sounded like triumph. It sounded like fear. Elias Kane stood tall, chest rising and falling, with calm breaths. His eyes were sharp, unbroken, his hands curled into fists, and the galaxy watched in horror as the laughter that had once filled the arena turned into silence. For the first time in history, the trial of dominance no longer looked like a spectacle of predator versus prey. It looked like something else entirely. It looked like the beginning of a nightmare. The Vorkal's roars filled the arena like thunder rolling across the sky. Its enormous body moved with a fury born of frustration, claws gouging deep scars into the stone floor, tail whipping like a spiked hammer. But no matter how hard it struck, no matter how fast it lunged, the human refused to fall. Elias Kane stood firm. Sweat glistened across his forehead. Dust clung to his uniform, but his eyes remained sharp and unbroken. He had studied the beast's movements carefully, and now he understood its rhythm, the way it struck, the way it recovered, the small moments of weakness hidden between its savage attacks. The alien crowd, once laughing, now watched in silence. Some leaned forward, others sat frozen, their eyes wide in disbelief. The Vorkal was supposed to be unstoppable, the apex predator of 3 systems, the terror of armies. Yet here was a human, unarmed, facing it not as prey, but as equal. Up in the grand viewing box, the reptilian warlord Zor growled in frustration, his scaled fists pounding against the armrest. "This is an insult. The beast toys with him, it must be." But the feathered scholar beside him shook her head, her golden eyes fixed on Elias. "No, do you not see? The beast grows desperate. Its strikes are no longer precise. It cannot understand this human, and that frightens it." Another roar shook the walls as the Vorkal charged. Its claws sliced downward with a force that could have split a shuttle in half. The crowd gasped. This was the end. But Elias did not dodge backward. He stepped forward. With perfect timing, he caught the creature's arm as it struck. His hands locked around the beast's wrist and forearm. The arena shook with the impact. But instead of being crushed, Elias twisted, pulling with all his strength. The Vorkal roared in pain and confusion as its own momentum betrayed it. Its massive body staggered, thrown off balance, crashing against the wall of the arena. Dust and fragments of stone rained down from the ceiling. The crowd erupted in gasps. "The human, he moved it!" shouted an insectoid noble, his mandibles clattering in shock. "That monster cannot be moved." "It is impossible," muttered a scaled merchant, his 4 hands trembling. "No one has ever forced the Vorkal back." Yet it had happened. Elias stood firm, his chest heaving with heavy breaths, his fists clenched. He had done what no alien warrior had dared. He had touched the beast directly, and he had not been destroyed. The Vorkal snarled, its glowing eyes locked on the human. It had felt pain. It had felt weakness. And that was something it had never known before. The predator lunged again, this time with renewed fury. Its claws swiped in a deadly arc. Elias ducked, rolling beneath its arm, and came up near its side. The beast's tail whipped toward him, spikes glinting. Elias dropped, low, letting the tail rush over his head. His movements were precise, smooth, each step fueled by instinct and training. The crowd could not look away. Every alien felt the same unsettling realization creeping into their hearts. The human was not simply surviving anymore. He was beginning to control the fight. The Vorkal stomped hard, shaking the arena floor, and tried to pin him with its massive foot, but Elias sidestepped at the last second and the beast's claws smashed into the sand. In that brief opening, Elias struck. He drove his fist into the beast's leg, right between the plates of armor where softer flesh hid. The crack of impact echoed across the arena, followed by the Vorkal's roar of pain. The alien crowd gasped as the creature staggered, blood dripping from its leg. "He heard it," shouted a voice from the stands. "No!" Another whispered in disbelief. "Not possible. Nothing wounds the Vorkal barehanded." But they had seen it with their own eyes. Elias Kane's fist had drawn blood from the galaxy's most feared predator. The Vorkal howled, enraged beyond reason. It lunged again, snapping its jaws wide, teeth gleaming like swords. Elias sidestepped, grabbing its lower jaw with one hand and shoving it upward with all his strength. The beast's bite missed, slamming shut inches from his shoulder. With a roar of his own, Elias slammed his knee into the underside of its jaw. The impact echoed like a drum. The monster reeled back, stumbling, its massive body swaying. The audience sat frozen, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. This was not prey. This was not luck. This was power. Alien whispers spread like fire through the stands. If one human can do this, what are they capable of as a species? Are they more dangerous than we believed? In the viewing box, Zor snarled. His scaled fists slammed against the stone, cracking it. "This is wrong. This is not possible." But the feathered scholar only leaned closer, eyes wide with awe. "It is not wrong. It is revelation. We believed humans weak. But look at him. He has no weapons, no armor, and yet he fights like a force of nature itself." Down in the arena, the Vorkal staggered, then steadied itself, fury blazing in its eyes. It roared so loudly that the air vibrated. Then it charged again, determined to crush this defiant human once and for all. Elias waited. His stance was low, steady. His breathing was controlled. His fists were ready. The beast leapt, claws raised high, jaws wide. And in that moment, Elias Kane acted. He rushed forward, slipping inside the predator's strike. His hand shot upward, grabbing the beast's throat. Muscles bulged in his arms as he dug his fingers into the gaps between the plates of armor. The Vorkal thrashed, its claws slashing wildly, its tail whipping in rage. But Elias held firm. He squeezed with all his strength, veins straining in his arms, his jaw clenched with unyielding determination. The arena shook with the struggle. Dust rose in clouds around them. The beast roared and clawed, but Elias did not let go. Inch by inch, impossibly, he forced the Vorkal down. The audience could hardly breathe. Thousands of alien eyes watched in stunned horror as the monster that had terrorized star systems was driven to its knees by human hands. The Vorkal's roars grew weaker, choked by the grip around its throat. Its claws scraped at the ground, gouging desperate trenches. Its tail lashed weakly, no longer with power but with panic. For the first time in its life, the predator knew fear. Elias roared, his voice echoing through the arena, and with a final surge of strength, he ripped the beast's throat wide. His bare hands tore through sinew and bone, shattering the monster's core. The Vorkal collapsed with a thunderous crash, blood spilling across the sand. The ground shook as its lifeless body hit the arena floor. Silence followed. No one spoke. No one moved. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. In the center of the arena stood Elias Kane, his chest heaving, his fists red, his eyes unbroken. Around him lay the corpse of the galaxy's apex predator, torn apart by human strength alone. The silence of the crowd was not admiration. It was not celebration. It was horror. They had just witnessed the impossible. A human, small, unarmed, underestimated, had defeated what no army had conquered. He had done it not with machines, not with weapons, but with his bare hands and unyielding will. And every alien in that arena felt the same chilling thought. If one human could do this, what could all humans do? For a long moment, no sound rose from the millions of alien throats gathered there. The only noise was the heavy breathing of Elias Kane, the lone human standing over the broken body of the Vorkal. Dust still hung in the air, shimmering in the harsh lights, while dark blood soaked into the sand beneath his feet. The beast, the undefeated terror of worlds, lay lifeless. The crowd should have been cheering. They should have been celebrating the end of the fight. But no voice dared to rise, because what they had seen was not a victory they could enjoy. It was a revelation that unsettled them to the core. The galaxy had always believed humans to be fragile. Curious, yes, adaptable, yes, but weak compared to the great warrior species that filled the stars. Yet here was a single man, unarmed, who had just proven that belief wrong in the most violent way possible. Slowly, whispers began to spread through the arena. He killed it with his hands. The Vorkal was unstoppable. Nothing killed it. He is not natural. He cannot be. Fear traveled through the stands like a cold wind. The laughter that had once mocked humanity was gone. The aliens' eyes, once filled with scorn, now shone with something else. Worry. In the high viewing box, the galaxy's leaders and nobles shifted uneasily in their seats. Warlord Zor, his scaled tail lashing in anger, slammed a fist into the table. The crack of stone echoed loudly. "This is unacceptable," he roared, his voice sharp and venomous. "That beast is a legend, a predator that has slaughtered battalions. And yet, one human breaks it apart like it was nothing." But even as he shouted, his words carried more fear than fury. The feathered scholar beside him did not speak immediately. Her golden eyes remained fixed on Kane, who now stood in the center of the arena, silent and calm, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. She finally spoke, her voice low but steady. "This is not nothing. This is a warning." "A warning?" Zor snapped. The scholar nodded slowly. "Yes. We thought humans ordinary. We saw only their curiosity, their trading, their diplomacy. But perhaps that was only the surface. What if beneath it lies something far more dangerous? What if this one man is not an exception, but a reflection of what they all are capable of?" Zor's scales bristled. He wanted to deny it, but the sight before him made denial difficult. The Vorkal's corpse lay broken in the sand, a sight so unnatural that it made his stomach twist. Other nobles began to murmur. A tall insectoid tapped its claws nervously against the railing. If humans are this strong, then our balance of power, it is broken. A sleek, silver-skinned envoy leaned forward, his voice tense. "Think carefully. A single human soldier does this. Imagine a battalion. Imagine an army. Imagine humanity deciding they no longer want peace." The murmurs grew louder, more fearful. The coalition of species, once proud and secure in their dominance, felt the ground shift beneath them. Back in the arena, Elias Kane did not move to celebrate. He did not raise his fists or shout in triumph. He simply stood, quiet and steady, his eyes scanning the crowd above him. His gaze was calm, but to the aliens watching, it felt like fire. Those eyes did not belong to prey. They belonged to a predator who had no fear, no hesitation, and that terrified them. The council's dilemma hours. Later, after the arena had emptied in a daze of silence, the leaders of the coalition gathered in a chamber deep beneath the spires. The chamber was vast, filled with glowing crystals and projection tables, but the air was heavy with unease. The Vorkal's death had spread like wildfire already. Even before the council began, whispers across the station spoke of the human who had done the impossible. Zor slammed his scaled fist against the council table. "We cannot allow this. Humans must be contained, controlled. Their strength is too great. If word spreads further, the galaxy will panic." "They will panic anyway," replied the feathered scholar. "Already they whisper. Already they fear. Look at us. We are the most powerful leaders in the galaxy, and yet even here we are shaken." The silver-skinned envoy nodded grimly. "The human has shown us something we did not wish to see. We believed strength came only from size, from claws, from armor. Yet this human, with no weapons, proved that there is another kind of power. Willpower, determination, precision. Some hissed in disagreement, others muttered in nervous tones. "What if he is unique?" asked a scaled noble, her eyes narrowing. "What if this Cain is the only one of his kind?" "And what if he is not?" countered the scholar quickly. "Can you take that chance? Can you risk believing he is an exception only to discover one day that an entire species shares his potential?" The chamber fell silent. The thought hung in the air like a shadow. The human stands alone. While the council argued, Elias Cain remained under guard in a private chamber of the arena complex. He was not chained, nor was he placed in a cage. The aliens were not certain if such restraints would even matter. He sat quietly on a bench, his uniform still stained with the dust and blood of the fight. His breathing was steady, his expression calm. He did not look like a man who had just faced death and won. He looked like a soldier at rest, waiting for his next order. Guards watched him nervously from outside the door. They were armed with plasma rifles, their hands tight on the triggers. But none dared step inside. They had seen what he could do. Weapons suddenly felt like toys in their hands. Word of him spread quickly beyond the chamber. Workers whispered as they passed by. Servants stole glances. Everywhere the same thought echoed. That is the human who killed the Vorkal with his bare hands. And with every whisper, fear grew. The shift in the stands days passed, and the story spread across star systems. On trading ships, in noble courts, in soldier barracks, the tale was told again and again. Some embellished it, saying Cain had crushed the beast's skull with a single strike. Others said he had stared into its eyes until it fled. But all stories carried the same core truth. A human had killed the galaxy's apex predator, and aliens had watched in horror. Some species began to look at humans differently, no longer as mere traders or explorers. Now they saw potential predators, hidden in plain sight. Merchants who once laughed at humans grew quiet when dealing with them. Soldiers who mocked human recruits began to watch them warily. Politicians spoke in hushed voices about Earth, wondering if alliances needed to be reconsidered. The galaxy was shifting, and all because of one man's fight. Fear in the council back. In the council chamber, the arguments grew sharper. Gore demanded humans be restricted, perhaps even banned from military service beyond their homeworlds. We cannot risk them rising. Today, one man killed the Vorkal. Tomorrow, they may march across the stars. Others argued for diplomacy. If they are so strong, then better to have them as allies than enemies. If we push them down, we may provoke the very conflict we fear. The feathered scholar remained calm. It is already too late to undo what has been seen. Every citizen who watched that fight will remember it forever. The image of a human standing over the Vorkal's corpse cannot be erased. We can only decide how we will act in the shadow of that truth. The council could not agree. Some feared humans, others respected them. But all of them now understood one fact. Humanity could no longer be ignored. The humans' silence. Through it all, Elias Cain did not speak of glory, nor did he demand recognition. When asked why he fought, the beast, he gave only one answer: to show what a human can do. It was not said with pride nor arrogance. It was simple truth spoken in steady words, and that truth carried more weight than any threat, because the galaxy had seen it. They had seen a human stand against the greatest predator alive. They had seen him win, and they had felt fear. Fear that spread from the arena to the council to the very heart of the galaxy. The silence of the arena had not been the end. It was only the beginning. What had happened in the arena was retold on every world, in every outpost and on every ship. It passed from mouth to mouth, and with each telling, the legend grew. A human soldier, unarmed, had killed the Vorkal, the beast that no army had ever tamed, the monster that symbolized death itself. At first, the story was whispered with disbelief, but then recordings from the arena leaked. The galaxy saw the human standing over the broken body of the predator. They saw his calm face, his steady eyes, and his quiet strength. And in that moment, disbelief turned into awe. Some species admired him, others feared him. But none ignored him. The quiet human Elias Kane himself remained quiet. He was not a man who sought fame. He did not travel from world to world, boasting of his victory. He did not demand respect or riches. Instead, he returned to his station quarters, lived simply and trained as he always had, but his silence only deepened the mystery. Aliens who saw him in the corridors would step aside. Soldiers who once laughed at humans now saluted him with trembling hands. Even the guards assigned to watch him avoided eye contact, afraid that he might see into their thoughts. Kane never raised his voice. He never threatened anyone. Yet his very presence carried a weight heavier than any weapon. Because everyone who looked at him remembered the arena. Earth's new reputation back on Earth, the news arrived like fire. Humans who had long been considered second-rate in galactic strength suddenly found their name on every council report and military document. For centuries, Earth had been seen as a small power, a planet of dreamers, explorers, and diplomats. Now they were spoken of in a new way. The galaxy whispered, if one of them could kill the Vorkal, what could all of them do? Recruiters from alien militaries grew hesitant to enlist humans. Trade partners renegotiated contracts with greater caution. Some leaders began sending envoys to Earth with richer offers, hoping to secure human loyalty before others could. And on many worlds, mothers told their children new stories at night. Not of monsters, but of men. Stories of the day a human had slain the beast that none dared to face. The title spread quickly, the Predator Slayer, the Council's decision. The Council of Galactic leaders could not ignore the shift. They met in secret chambers surrounded by guards and veiled in shadows to decide how they would deal with humanity. Warlord Zor demanded restrictions. Humans are too dangerous. If we do not bind them, they will rise above us all. The feathered scholar disagreed. To bind them is to provoke them. Fear will not chain humanity. It will only sharpen their teeth. Voices clashed in the chamber. Some demanded humans be kept out of war. Others wanted to offer them a place of honor, to keep them close as allies. But no agreement came. The image of Kane in the arena was too strong, too fresh. None dared make a choice that could turn humanity into an enemy. And so the council hesitated, trapped between fear and respect. Whispers among soldiers. Far from the council chambers, soldiers on distant fronts began to speak of Kane with reverence. Among the insectoid legions, warriors painted human faces on their armor to frighten their foes. In the scaled empires, young recruits asked their trainers if they could fight, like the human. On the icy moons of the silver-skinned, children carved Kane's name into frozen walls, imagining him as a hero from myth. The legend spread faster than politics could contain it. To many, Kane was no longer just a man. He was proof that humanity was not weak, proof that courage could break even the strongest of enemies. Kane's reflection. Elias Kane, however, carried none of the pride that others placed upon him. One evening, sitting alone in his quarters, he stared at the stars outside the window. His hands, scarred and calloused, rested quietly on his knees. He thought of the Vorkal, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. He had not fought for glory. He had not fought for power. He had fought because he had no choice. Yet that fight had changed everything. He knew the galaxy now looked at humanity with new eyes, some with fear, some with respect. But he also knew what humans truly were. Fragile, yes, but filled with determination. Weak in body, but strong in will. And he wondered what would happen if humanity ever truly rose together. Would they be protectors or conquerors? He did not know the answer. The shadow of fear, the weeks that followed, Kane noticed the changes more clearly. When he walked through the station, conversations stopped. When he entered a mess hall, tables fell silent. Even high-ranking officers lowered their voices around him. At first, he thought it was respect. But he realized it was fear, and that troubled him. Humans had always wanted to belong among the stars, to stand as equals with other species. But fear created distance, fear built walls. If humanity became only a symbol of strength, they might lose their place as friends and allies. Cain understood this, but he also knew there was nothing he could do to erase what had happened. The galaxy had seen the truth, and the truth could not be unseen, a test of power. The Council's hesitation did not last long. Rumors spread of a rising threat beyond the borders, raiders who had seen Cain's victory and wanted to challenge humanity for themselves. They sent their own beast, a war construct forged of steel and rage, into a distant arena. They broadcast a message across the stars. If the human is truly the strongest, let him prove it again. The galaxy waited, breathless, but Cain refused. "I will not fight for entertainment," he said calmly. "Strength is not a show. It is a shield." His refusal shook the raiders. They had expected pride, arrogance, hunger for glory. Instead, they found only calm refusal. And in that refusal, Cain became even greater, because now the galaxy saw him not just as a warrior, but as a protector who fought only when needed. Bewau. Legend grows. Years passed, and the memory of the fight remained strong. Statues of Cain were built on alien worlds, not of him raising fists, but of him standing calm, steady, unshaken. Songs were written, stories told, and even military academies taught his battle as a lesson. Do not underestimate the quiet ones. Do not mistake patience for weakness. Children across worlds grew up hearing his name, sometimes in fear, sometimes in admiration. The legend of the Predator Slayer lived on, larger than life. Humanity's place. Because of Cain, humanity rose in the galaxy. No longer seen as weak, they were invited into councils, asked to train soldiers, and trusted as allies. But the legend also carried a warning. Other species respected humans, yes, but they also watched them carefully. One wrong move, one show of aggression, and the galaxy would tremble. Cain understood this balance. He carried the weight of the legend on his shoulders, not as pride, but as responsibility. He never called himself a hero. He never demanded the title others gave him. But wherever he went, aliens looked at him with the same thought. There is the man who killed the Vorkal. There is the human who changed everything. The final truth laid in his service when Cain was older and his hair had turned gray. A young recruit once asked him directly, "Sir, how did you do it? How did you kill the Vorkal?" Cain looked at him quietly for a moment. Then he answered in simple words, "I did it because I had to." "That is all?" The recruit frowned. "But what made you win when so many others failed?" Cain's eyes softened. "Because I am human. And being human means we don't stop when we're afraid. We keep going." Those words, simple and steady, carried farther than he knew. They became part of the legend itself, echoing in training halls and stories across the stars. And so, the galaxy did not only remember him as the Predator Slayer, they remembered him as the man who taught them what humanity truly was. Closing. The arena where the Vorkal fell became a place of pilgrimage. Not because of the beast, but because of the man. The sand where Cain had stood was preserved, glass walls built around it so no one would forget. Leaders came to study it. Soldiers came to kneel before it. Children came to press their hands against the glass and imagine themselves standing there. And through it all, the legend grew. Not just of Elias Cain, the man, but of humanity, the species that the galaxy had once called weak, and now called something else. Predators in their own right.